to City Club of Portland's Friday Forum. I'm Courtney Nelson, President of City Club. For 100 years, City Club of Portland is where civic-minded people come together to make Portland and Oregon a better place for everyone to live, work, and explore. We're gathered at the Sentinel Hotel today, along with all of you listening on OPB or viewing on Portland Community Media or YouTube. The generous support of City Club's corporate and media partners enables us to put on the state's best civic programs week after week. Our media partner is Oregon Business Magazine, and our current Friday Forum sponsors are Avangrid Renewables, Airbnb, McKinley Irvin, AARP, and Uber. Please show our appreciation for our sponsors. And now, on to the debate. I'm really excited that we're hosting just their second official, although I hear that they had a tough questioning from fifth graders, gubernatorial candidate debate today. With crumbling infrastructure, abysmal high school graduation rates, and an ongoing housing crisis driving up poverty and homelessness in our state, two candidates are vying to be our next state leader. Today we welcome our current Oregon Governor, Governor Kate Brown, and her challenger, Dr. Bud Pierce, who will debate these issues, among others. Moderating our debate today is Laura Gunderson, who is the new editorial and commentary pages editor of The Oregonian. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Courtney. It's my honor to facilitate this conversation today. Before we get started, a quick note about the format for today's debate. Each candidate will have an opening statement and a 2-minute closing statement. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to questions and 30 seconds for rebuttal at my discretion. In lieu of taking questions from the audience at the microphone, City Club members were invited to submit questions for the candidates in advance, many of which I have incorporated into our questions today. Finally, I ask that our audience here at the Sentinel refrain from applause during the course of the conversation. But please join me now in welcoming our candidates, Governor Kate Brown and Dr. Bud Pierce. Now let's begin. Just before the start of the program, we flipped a coin to see which candidate would speak first. Dr. Pierce, you have your 2-minute opening statement.
Thank you very much. First of all, please join City Club. It's a great organization. So, and again, thank you for coming out today, because when you give me your time, you give me your most valuable resource. So I'm Dr. Bud Pierce, Republican candidate for governor of Oregon. Most people know me as a cancer doctor in the Salem area, but I started in a very different way. I'm a janitor's kid. I was a bag boy when I was growing up. I was an orderly in a nursing home in my first job. And I've never forgotten where I come from, and in this chest beats a blue-collar heart. And I'm a Marine, which means I say what I mean what I say, I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do, and we leave no one behind. All races, all religions, and all gender identities. On the stage with me is Governor Kate Brown, a 25-year career politician. She is an expert in winning elections. She is closely aligned with powerful special interests. These special interests need to be taken on in order to make meaningful changes in Oregon, and I do not believe she's able to do this. We face many challenges in Oregon today. The City Club points out in the flyer that we have a crumbling infrastructure, traffic gridlock, homelessness, which you saw on your way in surrounding the hotel, that is frankly unacceptable, untreated mental illness, a PERS system that needs reform, K through 12 that needs to be improved, unaffordable housing. And we need to solve these problems. And I would like you to know that I am not owned by any special interest. I'm owned by the people of Oregon, and I'm in no way hesitant to take on any group that prevents us from making progress. So thank you very much for coming out, and I look forward to a vigorous debate. Thank you.
Governor Brown.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here this afternoon, and so delighted you took time out of your busy schedules to be here with us today. I got my start in public because I wanted to be a voice for the voiceless. and I wanted to go to law school because I wanted the tools to achieve justice and equality in this world. As a young lawyer, I had the experience of making sure that my clients got a fair shot in the courtroom, but I got my first taste in the state capitol as an advocate for women's organizations, fighting to make sure that women had justice in this state. But one of the bills that I worked on is a bill that enabled parents to stay home with their sick children without fear of losing their jobs. And when Governor Roberts signed that bill into law, Oregon became the first state in the nation to recognize family medical leave. But I realized that I could make a difference and make Oregon a better place for all of our families. So following that session, I got a call from my state senator asking me if I was interested in seeking an appointment to the legislature. I said yes. The appointment was the easy part. I think you all know the race was much more challenging. In a race where I was outspent 2-1, I won that race by 7 votes. And I will tell you, 20 years later, I still have people say to me, I was your 7th vote. I was the reason that you won. Well, it's been an incredible honor to serve 17 years in the Oregon legislature and 6 years as your Secretary of State. You all know that last February I was sworn in as the 38th governor. And despite tremendous challenges this state has faced, I am so proud of the work we have been able to do together to move Oregon forward, from passing the nation's first coal to clean, to making sure that every eligible Oregonian can have their voice be heard. I look forward to earning your support and continuing to build on the progress we've made so far. Thank you so much.
And you won the coin toss, Dr. Pierce, so let's start with you. If
All right.
ballot measure 97 is defeated, we will have divided electorate, a significant budget deficit, a growing need to provide funding for education, healthcare, and senior services, as well as a $22 billion PERS deficit. What will you do as governor to address this economic reality?
So I'm preparing a budget on the premise that Measure 97 will fail. That'll be unveiled in the next week or two. It's important to note that the general funds budget in the last biennium began at $18.5 billion, will be at $20.6 billion going forward. And what we hear is that for government, that is not enough money. Clearly, the answer is to prioritize spending and to get a lot more frugal. Yesterday, I was in Eugene, and I was reviewing some news, and they built a road from Eugene to Newport, started in 2005, scheduled to be finished a few years later for $130 million, just got finished at about $350 million. Not a good project, clear waste of money. We look at the programs that have failed over the past several years while Governor Brown was Secretary of State with audit and oversight function. We see the Columbia River Crossing, $240 million, no bridge built. We see Cover Oregon, $300 million, no website that works, and now we're going to give Oracle $500 million to fix our IT system. We see business energy tax credits, $250 million apparently wasted in fraud. And then the list really goes on and on. So what we need to do is to become much more frugal in our spending, reorganize our agencies, reorganize our programs, and to find ways to make our money go further. PERS reform, I'll talk about if another question comes up. Thank you.
My rebuttal. I am supporting ballot measure 97 because I am not willing to obliterate the investments we made in early childhood education, career and technical education, and STEM programming, and removing barriers for children across the state to attend our universities and colleges. As governor, I am also preparing a budget without ballot measure 97, and right now that looks like 10 to 12% cuts across the board. I am not willing to kick seniors off of programs like Project Independence, and I am not willing to kick 400,000 families off of health care.
For those of you listening on OPB, this is City Club of Portland's Friday Forum. I'm Laura Gunderson, the editorial and commentary editor at the Oregonian. Today we're here with candidates for Oregon Governor, Governor Kate Brown, and Dr. Bud Pierce. We have a follow-up question by City Club member Don Kramer. If ballot measure 97 passes, it could have a chilling effect on the Oregon economy and reverse almost 40 years of economic growth as established and emerging corporations move their operations out of state and corporate recruitment comes to a standstill. What will you do as governor to help promote economic development in this reality?
Number of things I will do as governor. I will continue the work I'm already doing to invest in our infrastructure. Every business owner that I've talked to has said it's absolutely key that we invest in infrastructure throughout the state. Our transportation system, our housing system. Every business owner I've talked to said we need a skilled and diverse workforce. That's why it's absolutely so key that we continue to invest in career and technical education. It gives our students the hands-on learning opportunities that awakens them to the power of their own potential. Lastly, we need to continue the work I'm already doing around our small businesses. 70% of jobs are created when existing Oregon businesses expand and grow. I've got a small business advisory cabinet. We're working out recommendations for next session to make sure that our small businesses have the capital that they need to be successful, to make sure that they have the technical assistance that they need, and that we have the right regulatory environment. In addition to that, we're continuing the work we're doing to make sure that Oregon products can be exported in a way that makes sense for Oregon companies. I had the incredible opportunity of traveling to Asia as your governor and meeting with officials from Vietnam, from Japan, and from China. They are hungry for Oregon products.
May I? 30 seconds. This governor failed in delivering a transportation package, although she talks about infrastructure. If Measure 97 passes, I am trying to keep budget spending close at $20.6 billion. I believe it'd be important to put extra money into education, especially K through 12. And the remainder of the money, I think we need to rebate back to the citizens who will pay on average $600 more for cost of living, and we're already the second least affordable state. And we need to have packages for business so they don't relocate.
Our underfunded retirement system has been compared to a Ponzi scheme and called a moral issue that needs to be addressed. The courts have told us we cannot make changes to those already receiving PERS benefits. But what plans do you have to address the current system that will cost our local governments and school hundreds of millions over the next 2 years?
So this governor's been in office in some form for 25 years, has kicked this can down the road continuously, has not taken on this challenge, and continues to have not good answers, although maybe we'll hear something different today. What we can do and what the Supreme Court says that we can do is we can modify the benefits of people who are not yet retired. Again, the retirees are fine. The people's PERS stays the same. Maybe 5 years instead of 3 years for final calculation. Maybe not putting the football coach's television contract into the final salary so it's inflated. When you do a money match payment formula, instead of doing a 7 or 8%, you can go to market rates, which is 2 or 3%. You can go in that direction. The courts will allow it. The big gorilla in the room is, in fact, what is the contribution of current public employees to the retirement system? This year, we actually have a $4 billion PERS bill due, and it's going to be collared at $2.8 billion. If we're the average state in America, 80% of that $4 billion, or $3.2 billion, are paid for by the employer, and 20% by the employees, or $800 million. We need to gradually move in that direction. I know it's different than the past, but we can't afford the promises made in the past because they were not sustainable. Finally, we will have to take money from the general fund and backfill into the budget so that our municipalities, cities, and schools are not broken. A great deal more prosperity with a higher median income and a lower cost of living for Oregonians will go a long way to solving this crisis.
I think it's interesting that my opponent is willing to balance the PERS budget on the backs of hardworking teachers, educators, firefighters, and police officers and nurses by requiring them to take a 6% salary reduction. And at the same time, he is not willing to let corporations in this state and out of this state pay their fair share of revenue. Oregon has one of the states that has the lowest corporate tax burden of any other state in the country. Absolutely unacceptable.
I pose the question to you as well. Do you want
Thank you. Yes. Everyone knows in June, the Oregon Supreme Court made a decision that we must keep our promises to Oregon retirees. I believe it's critical that we have a retirement system that taxpayers can afford. That's exactly what we have in place right now. In terms of the PERS liability, I've tasked my legal team with examining the statutes, the case law, and meeting with lawyers on both sides of the issue to see if there was a viable alternative that would pass muster with the courts and result in significant financial savings. To my knowledge, there is absolutely no clear path forward. That's why I have requested and am working on legislation to provide the Oregon Investment Council with the tools and the resources they need to expand our return on our investments. It's my understanding that this has a clear path in the courts and it has broad bipartisan support. We need to move Oregon forward. My opponent's suggestions end up looking like lawsuit, lawsuit, lawsuit. It's time we solve this problem and move forward in a way that avoids endless litigation.
Would you like a rebuttal?
Again, the pathway is clear in terms of what we can do. We need to take on the hard questions and come up with realistic answers. Again, there are many hardworking teachers, firefighters. Our public servants are incredibly hardworking. So are our private citizens. The current system is a form of a Ponzi scheme. It's going to take all of us to contribute, including workers in the system of public service and all of us who are outside the system. So by unity and coming together, we can solve it.
And now we have a question on gun violence from City Club member Sam Metz. Tomorrow is the one-year anniversary of the mass shooting at Umpqua Community College in Roseburg. It was the worst mass shooting in Oregon's history, but also the third such shooting in 4 years. They all involved firearms that were legally obtained. Will firearms legislation prevent more death?
So I went down to Roseburg and I was there within a few hours after the shooting, and I saw the families and saw the absolute horror in their eyes of those impacted by this horrible tragedy. And I vowed that we will do everything in our power to prevent something like this from happening again in the state of Oregon. We have provided the community of Roseburg with resources and the tools to help it recover, including providing mental health professionals for over a year and making sure that the college has the resources to rebuild. In addition, I brought together college, universities, and presidents throughout the state to come up with recommendations to make sure that we can prevent incidents like this in community college and college campuses and make sure that we have safety tools in place. Those recommendations are forthcoming, but it will include investments in infrastructure so that we can ensure that our students and our staff are safe on campus. But lastly, we must take action. We must make sure that we keep guns out of the hands of those who should not have them. I have proposed a number of bills that will make sure that we close the Charleston loophole, making sure that those who don't pass a background check can get a gun in the future, making sure that boyfriends can't get guns in domestic violence situations, and making sure that we limit high-capacity magazines. We cannot do nothing. We must take action together.
Remember. Would you like to answer?
The Umpqua shooting, a disaster, huge, just human sadness. When we look at the science or statistics of gun violence, we've actually had about a 50% fall in the last 20 or 30 years overall. 83% of gun deaths in Oregon are suicide or suicide-related. Many others, the remainder due to criminal activity. Because of the Second Amendment, gun rights fiercely debated, 300 major gun laws, thousands of minor gun laws, enforcing them all. But let's turn towards solving the mental illness, the suicides, and look at Sandy Hook as a model for making our schools safer.
Ms. Gunderson, I'd like to respond to that. Okay.
Those 9 people killed in Roseburg were not suicide. We must take action. And I think you all know that a mannequin of me was burned in effigy on the Capitol last week. If these extreme groups continue to burn a mannequin of me in effigy every time I stand up for the safety of Oregonians, then they're going to run out of mannequins.
Can I have one comment?
Okay, one more rebuttal.
Yeah, so we have, that is, the burning in effigy is unacceptable. I 100% denounce it as any reasonable and civilized people would. The point is, when you distract yourself and go into a political battle about Second Amendment and gun laws, and you don't focus on mental illness, you end up with hundreds and hundreds of innocent people dying because you don't have the right focus. You try to have a focus on everything, but I would argue at this point in time, enforce the thousands of gun laws that we have, focus on the mental illness, also focus on school protection.
Thank you, Dr.
I'd like an opportunity to respond.
I think we're good.
Okay.
And
He's
I'll
a
ask Dennis to
doctor.
remember on the clapping. This is a follow-up question, which is why I held you. This remains on the same topic, and again, another question from City Club member Sam Metz. To follow up, Dr. Pierce, urban areas have low firearm ownership but high firearm homicides. In contrast, rural areas tend to have high firearm ownership but low rates of firearm homicides. Should Oregon's laws on firearms distinguish between these two environments?
Again, I'm more interested in going at the source of violence and and how to get at the root cause. And what you tend to find in urban areas a lot is a lack of dignity of work for too many citizens. They don't have job opportunities, they don't have stability, and this leads to a society where there are people that are struggling with basic daily living, and too often they turn to difficulties with addiction and other behaviors that get them into trouble. So what we need to do is to make sure that we have a prosperous urban area, and all those people that are cast aside, that are homeless, living on the streets, don't have a good job, that we help them to join the mainstream of culture. We also need to look at the whole way of policing and the way we improve the safety of our neighborhoods. Community policing, where there are generally older officers, maybe lightly armed, that walk the streets, that kind of bring stability and calmness to the neighborhoods, would be a great help. And again, when the police are called, I do think I'd like to make the clear statement that success is only defined when the citizen is okay, the police officer is okay, and the law is upheld. So by creating a society in the urban areas where more people are part of the mainstream society and not cast aside and not participating and having more effective policing, I think we'll get at the issue of the gun violence. I don't believe that generally we can have different gun laws.
I pose the question to you, Governor.
Thank you. So I just heard from a parent of a kindergartner. They're teaching kindergartners what to do in the event of a mass shooter. In every school in this state and every school in this country, in what world is that okay? I am absolutely committed to solving this public health crisis, and as a physician, he should know better and do better. Yes, do our gun laws need to reflect the differences in our communities? Yes, they do. But currently, we need to provide every single tool in the toolkit to make sure that we are ending gun violence. That means urging Congress to take action, doing a federal assault weapons ban. It means enforcing the laws that we have on the books. That's exactly what I have done as your governor, by making sure that the Oregon State Police are fully enforcing our comprehensive background checks, which we just passed and I signed into law. And then we already provided the
question before us is more laws passed going to get us to the safety that we want? Again, I would go to root cause and root cause analysis, which we are taught to do when there's a medical misadventure, get at the cause and solve it. And getting at the cause is poverty in rural areas, disintegration of families, lack of opportunity, lack of a hopeful life. And if we focus there, enforce all the gun laws, do a better job with policing, we will go a long way.
Let's move on to criminal justice system. We have a question from City Club member Carol Witherell. What criminal justice system reforms for adults and juveniles do you believe should have the highest priority at this time? And what can you and all of us here do to bring these changes about?
I think there's a number of things that we can do in terms of criminal justice reform, but the thing we must do is address systemic racism in our criminal justice system. And we can do that a number of ways. Number one, I recently hired a new superintendent of Oregon State Police, and my first request of him was that he make sure we hire and have our Oregon State Police look like the diverse communities of Oregon. Secondly, we need to make sure that our law enforcement have diversity training as they go through their law enforcement training. In terms of criminal justice reform, we are seeing great success with the Criminal Justice Reinvestment Act, but I think there's more work that we can do to make sure that our laws are not impacting people disproportionately. And Oregon has a disproportionate, our criminal justice system is disproportionately impacting people of color. Absolutely no question. Secondly, we need to continue to invest in early childhood education. We need to make sure that we close the opportunity gap, the differences between different students, economically advantaged and disadvantaged, before it has an opportunity to take root. And under my leadership, we will continue to invest in early childhood education to make sure that we open the doors of opportunity for every single Oregonian.
If one,
I pose the question to
Sorry,
you,
yeah.
Dr. Pierce.
so if one wants to do police work, they should step aside from being the governor of Oregon and get in the trenches of the difficult job of police work. The thing that we can do best of all is to prevent recidivism. And we have too many people go in and out and in and out of the criminal justice system, usually starting with a very poor background in terms of family, education, and job opportunities. And these people, when they go into prison and they have structure in their life and they're trained to do work, they can commonly perform very well. But the problem is then that when they go out into the community, they in fact don't have anything they can do, and they're apt to go back end up back in jail. So what we must do for the people that are homeless, have mental illness, have disabilities, people who are in prison and have a black mark against them, we must ensure that as they transition out of prison, that they're placed into good work, because the economy is booming and we have good work, and that they in fact have a decent chance at a fair life. That is the issue that surrounds most of our social problems, is the lack of meaningful work for too many citizens. I know we hear this governor talking about 5% unemployment, labor participation rate 62%. We have about 3 million Oregonians of working age. We have about 2 million jobs. A quarter of them are part-time. The answer is the dignity of work. It brings people together. It ends despair, and it creates a safer society.
For those of you listening on OPB, this is City Club of Portland's Friday Forum. I'm Laura Gunderson, editorial and commentary page editor for The Oregonian. Today we're here with candidates for Oregon Governor, Governor Kate Brown, and Dr. Bud Pierce. We'll move on to the issue of housing and homelessness with a question from City Club member Corey Ann Woodard. Dr. Pierce, do you favor a comprehensive plan to help change landlord-tenant laws in Oregon, including rent control, in an effort to address our state's homelessness and housing affordability?
So I reject failed policies that have proven, such as rent control, that have proven to be failures throughout the country. You just have to look at New York and San Francisco to see what happens is that rent-controlled units are not maintained, that renters don't complain because they have a low rent, and then when these buildings are turned over to market rates, are unaffordable. $4,100 in San Francisco for one-bedroom apartment, and Manhattan and all of New York are out of control. So if you want to build affordable housing, build it affordably. If you read the Willamette Week from yesterday, their investigative reporting suggests that we're building affordable housing at $500 a square foot, remodeling affordable housing at $500 a square foot. If you build it at $100, $125, or $150, you actually build it in an affordable manner. Can't have all the bells and whistles, and you actually have to probably bring in private sector people because they have the discipline of markets. When public sector is involved, they consider affordable housing hugely expensive housing with lots of subsidy and identify a few people who can, in fact, obtain that housing. We need to, again, to create affordable housing by making it affordable at the build. We need to create affordable housing by having a city and a state where wages are high and cost of living is low, and then you have a lot more flexibility. Again, we can focus on root cause, we can get at what the matter is, try to really solve the issue, or we can keep throwing Band-Aids at it in government programs, which cost us a great deal of money and don't solve the problem.
We have a housing crisis in Oregon. We have a housing crisis throughout the entire United States. We need to make sure that every family has a safe, stable roof over their homes. Last year, in Oregon public schools, there were 20,000 children who were homeless. 20,000 children who didn't have a place to sleep at night, who didn't have a warm, dry place to do their homework. Absolutely unacceptable. That's why I rolled up my sleeves and went to work and partnered with the Oregon legislature to deliver a $70 million package to build affordable units in key needy communities, making sure that we provide local jurisdictions with additional tools to build more affordable units. And as governor, I will continue to move forward, continue to invest in a similar package this biennium. We must build affordable units. We must provide additional tools for jurisdictions, including prohibiting people from being kicked out of their rentals for no cause whatsoever. And I believe that we need other tools in the toolbox as well, that we need to bring people around a table, keep all of our options on the table until this problem is solved.
Rebuttal? Yay.
Wait for the time.
So this governor's been here for 25 years while the 20,000 children, the situation occurred. So she's been someone who's been intimately involved in creating the system where this has occurred. Someone from the Obama administration stated that strict land use laws and other regulations are driving housing prices up. And if one is familiar with the rest of the country, they will find that Oregon is almost unique in high cost of housing and low wages, and that is the issue. So the governor may need to find out more about that.
I'd like an opportunity to rebut. I've been really proud of my 25 years of service to the people of Oregon, from passing family medical leave to passing mental health parity so families could get access to the mental health services that they need, to making sure that our lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community had the right to marry and were not discriminated underneath the law. I am so proud of the work we have done together to move Oregon forward, and I look forward to working with you to make sure that Oregon, our home, is a place where everyone can thrive.
Governor, let's move on to the environment. We have a question from City Club member Spencer Ehrman. Since publishing its report on air toxics in 2010, the City Club's position has been that the Oregon Legislature and Department of Environmental Quality should pass and enforce legislation to curtail the levels of diesel exhaust and wood smoke, thus improving the health of all Oregonians. Legislators will be considering packages to address both in 2017. If elected, will you support those efforts?
Yes, Oregonians want and deserve clean air. I'm so proud of the work we have done so far. For the first time in Oregon history, we are connecting public health to air quality regulations. That's never happened before. We've brought in new leadership at the Department of Environmental Quality, and we are tackling down on making sure that Oregonians, not just in the metropolitan area, but throughout the state, have cleaner air to breathe. I brought forward a $2.5 million package. The legislature said, no, we just want to fund cleaner air for Portland. And I said, no, we need to fund cleaner air for all of Oregon. Secondly, I've been really pleased with our new settlement with Volkswagen. We are going to receive $68 million to be able to translate our dirty diesel engines to clean diesel engines. And we can do that in school buses throughout the entire state of Oregon. We can also do it in trucks as well. I think there's some additional tools. If we come together around investing in a transportation package that will provide the resources for a complete electric vehicle infrastructure, I think we can take this one step further and do electrical vehicle buses throughout the state of Oregon. It'll cost us some money. I think it's worth the effort.
Republican Tom McCall was the greatest environmental governor in Oregon's history, and the true Republican Party is committed to an absolutely clean environment, certainly taking on diesel exhaust. I would point out that this governor and administration were completely asleep at the wheel with the DEQ crisis, air quality around Bullseye Glass in Portland, and now is trying to rapidly fill the gaps that were created when the DEQ was obviously mismanaged and was not overseeing our industries. We need to have a much more balanced approach when we look at agencies and business. I would argue that our agencies need a dual mandate. The dual mandate is to ensure that the necessary regulations are met and work very hard with industry to improve upon that using the best science, and at the same time ensuring that the businesses are able to prosper, because if they aren't able to prosper, eventually we won't have any jobs. So I'm absolutely committed to looking at every bit of legislation and every rules and every means to to continue Oregon to be a leader in the environment, following in the footsteps of Tom McCall. I will have a look at the cost of this, because if we just throw cost to the wind and don't pay attention to it, and if we become poorer and poorer, I'll have you note that very poor societies do not have the resources to put in place for environmental control, for environmental improvement, and to help the most needy. So we do need to balance that.
Governor, let's go to a question about medical marijuana from a City Club member via Twitter. Oregon can be a world leader in medical cannabis research and development and save people from increased opioids use. Will either of you, though we'll start with the governor, seize the opportunity before it's too late?
First answer, yes. I had the incredible opportunity to attend the Democratic National Convention. And during the convention, I met a lovely young woman who said she had been cured of lupus by using medical marijuana. I think it's imperative that we spend the dollars to do the research, to make sure that people have the medicine that we need, and that we grow this opportunity, literally and figuratively, in a way that meets our needs, make sure that we continue to grow the enterprise, and that we do it in a way that ensures adult user safety, that it protects our children, and that it keeps the marijuana that shouldn't be in the black market out of the black market.
Like at 30 or a minute 30?
Why don't you wait? Dr. Pierce?
Okay. So I'm in the 40th year of medicine in my career and have written many medical marijuana cards. And let me answer it from a scientific perspective and a little background. Tobacco was founded in the New World, and it was taken back to Europe. And for hundreds of years, you can find glowing reports in the lay and medical literature about the benefits of tobacco, the well-being it brings, and how much more healthy it makes people. And ultimately, real science was performed, and we found out how deadly that leaf was. Now, we're hopeful for marijuana. We're hopeful. I've certainly treated a number of patients that seemingly benefit in terms of side effects. But we have no reputable science because it wasn't allowed to be studied, because the federal government will lock you up. So what we need to do is push forward aggressively with the proceeds from the sale of marijuana, and we need to find out what its true medical value is, and we do need to study potential harm. So that's the right answer. Oregonians are clear in what they want to have access to marijuana, and we're going to proceed in that matter. But again, as someone who has spent their whole life looking at this, looking at medical research, knowing history, we need to bring out the true facts, and we certainly should be leaders in research.
Let's move from cannabis to Cascadia. We have a question from member Tom Dyke. The most recent scientific studies of the Great Cascadia subduction earthquakes predict 15 to 20% chance of a 9+ magnitude quake along the Oregon coast in the next 50 years. What steps would you take to make Oregon resilient to this danger? Specifically, would you favor strengthening state building codes to protect life and ensure a working economy after such an event?
Certainly, we need to strengthen our building codes, and again, that goes back to the prosperity question. And again, societies that are prosperous can do all manner of work to protect the environment, strengthen building codes, have a great education system, and to take care of the most needy. So again, as we become more prosperous, certainly the new buildings need to be up to code and standard. We need to retrofit as we can. We need to be prepared in the event of disaster. I think we have to remember that people a lot of times talk about being cut off for so long. Cascadia, if it occurs, or when it occurs really, will not occur across the whole United States. The rest of the country needs to be involved in planning. We need to have detailed planning with our federal partners. We need to have supplies set aside. We have to have plans, which we actually have in place pretty well for the medical professionals in terms of response and where they need to go. And it's about planning. It's about building in a way that minimizes the damage. It's about being more and more prosperous so we can commit more resources to all the things that we want to do. And yes, I agree with preparing for this event.
So I'm curious, I know this is a radio audience, but I'd like to see the number of hands in this room of folks who have their 14-day preparedness kit ready. Wow, that's pretty impressive for those of you who are listening on the radio. That's our job at the state, and that's why I've hired Mike Harriman to be our Chief Resiliency Officer. His goal is to come up with a strategic plan, make sure we're working with local jurisdictions to make sure that we are prepared for a Cascadia event. One of the unique tools we're doing is sister counties, Umatilla County partnering with Tillamook County so that they have a friend to reach out to when they need assistance should there be a Cascadia subduction event. Secondly, we need to invest in our infrastructure. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this means additional resources. You can't seismically retrofit the 100 bridges along the Oregon coast without getting new dollars on the table. And that's why it's absolutely key that we work together, business community, elected officials around the state, to invest in a transportation package that prepares Oregon for a seismic event. And that means not just seismically retrofitting roads and bridges, but making sure that we have an alternative route like Highway 97, so that Oregon can continue to function post such an event. Highway 97 needs to be invested in so that we can deliver products safely and that folks can get to their work in an efficient and safe manner.
For those of you listening on OPB, this is City Club of Portland's Friday Forum. I'm Laura Gunderson, editorial and commentary editor at The Oregonian. Today we're here with candidates for Oregon Governor, Governor Kate Brown and Dr. Bud Pierce. So we have a question from City Club member Bob Sterry for you, Dr. Pierce. Why should an Oregonian consider voting for a candidate from a party that has seriously lost its way and is actively promoting a highly repulsive presidential candidate?
So representative democracy requires competitive elections. And the choice that we have in Oregon really is it better just to shut it down and let Governor Brown and her party appoint our leadership, or does some party rise up? And again, I agree, the Republican Party has absolutely lost its way. It is not relevant in the state and statewide elections, and it needs to be made relevant for the benefit of the citizens and to make the Democratic Party better. So we have to look at our roots. Our roots are Abraham Lincoln, who stood for unity and freedom. And we talk about individuals such as Mark Hatfield, Tom McCall, and Vic Atiyeh. Those are our role models. The Republican Party needs to be in the center of the political spectrum. With the Democrats pulling hard left, we may be a center-left state. That would be better, in my mind, than a hard left state. Center-left would be a better place to be. We need to attract fiscal conservatives and socially moderate people that have left our party. And we need, frankly, to connect people of color, many of whom are incredibly socially conservative and fiscally conservative, and we have failed to attract them. I took the step in about a week ago in front of the Oregonian editorial board and said that I could no longer endorse our candidate for president because of the divisiveness and the rejection amongst many of the voters I need to have look at me and consider me. We have a party in trouble. We need to reform it for the betterment of Oregonians.
I'd like a rebuttal. I'm curious to my opponent, Donald Trump's racist behavior has been evident in this country for years. Donald Trump's treatment of women, what he calls women, has been happening for years. His embarrassment, how he has treated Gold Star families. What happened recently that made you change your mind?
So Hillary Clinton has had trouble with being truthful under oath. I'll answer this. Hillary Clinton has had trouble with email servers. Hillary Clinton has had trouble with wealth. I haven't paid much attention to Donald Trump until this campaign, honestly. I don't watch reality TV, but it's clear to me from the language he uses and what he says and how he offends people, I had to step away from that endorsement. Not easy as a Republican. Not easy because there is this party mentality. Most of the people in this room are heavily Democratic Party members and look at it from that point of view. So I would challenge you to consider how open-minded you would be, and would you reject a Democratic Party candidate? Maybe yes, maybe no.
We have a question for you, Governor Brown, from City Club member Harmony Ewing. She asks, Governor Brown, many Oregonians feel the federal government clearly has more control over our state than was intended by the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. Do you think this is a problem? If yes, how do you think it should be solved, and if no, why?
This sounds like somebody from We the People is here in the audience. I think we have achieved a good balance in this country. Are there circumstances when I believe that the federal government has too much control? Definitely. But I'm also very proud of the work that our federal government is doing to make sure that we move forward on the Clean Air Act, the 111D rule, that all of the states across the country are working to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, because I believe the most challenging issue facing this state, facing this country, facing our world is global climate change. And future generations will judge us not on the fact of global climate change, but what we do to tackle it. And I'm so proud of our president, President Obama, for taking the lead and moving forward and taking action.
Can you repeat again, only because I had the sign here and I was distracted by the sign? Can I just hear the question again?
Oh, the question was that many Oregonians feel the federal government clearly has more control over our state than was intended by the 10th Amendment.
Yeah,
Rebuttal?
Again, what I would say is this. What has happened? Yeah, let me just comment.
Okay.
So what I would say about that is that it really drives from economics. The federal government has a budget of about $4.5 trillion out of about a $16 trillion economy. All the state budgets are at about $1.2 trillion. So the government controls a lot through its resource and influence. We have to accept that reality. We have to work with our federal partners. But again, the question is that the right balance or not? Well, we'll go forward with and have to accept it, but we have become a country controlled significantly by money from the federal government.
For those of you listening on OPB, this is City Club of Portland's Friday Forum. I'm Laura Gunderson, editorial and commentary editor at The Oregonian. Today, we're here with candidates for Oregon Governor, Governor Kate Brown and Dr. Bud Pierce. Looks like we have the report on women and girls in Oregon was released last week. The report found women in Oregon make less than men, especially women of color. Additionally, more than 50% of women in Oregon are survivors of sexual assault. What will you do for women in Oregon? Shouldn't women have safety and opportunity? That's a question from City Club member Austin Batalden. Governor?
So I know what it feels like to be a victim of domestic violence. I know what it feels like to represent clients who can't get restraining orders on abusive partners. That's why I spent a number of years in the Oregon legislature strengthening Oregon's domestic violence and sexual assault laws, including increasing penalties for domestic violence when a child was present, including getting the first general fund dollars ever for domestic violence shelters. But there is much more that we can do. We will tackle this issue moving forward, getting more resources on the table so that we don't turn away four out of 5 domestic violence survivors and sexual assault victims. Absolutely unacceptable. As your governor, I was so proud to sign into law a pay equity bill. It's an issue that I've had experience with myself. Oregon women earn between 53 cents and 83 cents on the dollar compared to a white man. It will tell you it has not changed hardly at all since I became a lawyer. We can do more. We can make sure that employees can talk and find out what their fellow employees make so that they can learn whether or not they're being discriminated against. And under my leadership, we will continue to open the door of opportunity for all of our women and girls.
You can answer the question.
Okay. So despite the wonderful efforts of our government leadership, Oregon finds itself with its women, its poor women, horribly underpaid, violence committed against them at about the highest level in the country, and sexual violence committed against them at the highest level in the country. And this despite all these wonderful laws and attempts at making women powerful. You're really talking about making someone powerful. A woman that has great education and training and a great job is not susceptible to this kind of abuse by men, women, or anyone. Okay. So powerful women have access to lawyers and courts and go at it. But the women who are most vulnerable are poor women who don't have a place to turn because they don't have shelter, they don't have family around them. So I would argue that in addition to strong laws and going after every sexual predator and every abuser, that the way we can make women have a better existence and be less susceptible to being harmed is to make them powerful in terms of their job and their opportunity. Because again, women that are in a safe place, whether within a family or independent and have resources, have ways of protecting themselves. And when you have no resources, you're very vulnerable.
I would like an opportunity to rebut. I'm honestly not sure where to start, but I grew up in a middle-class family. I went to law school. I know what it feels like to be paid less, substantially less, than the male lawyer in the office next to me. This is not just about power. It's about making sure that people are not discriminated against because of their gender, because of their race, and because of their sexual orientation. And finally, in terms of pay, that's why it was so critical that we raised the minimum wage in this state, because we have 90,000 women, head of household, who are raising 1 or 2 children on $20,000 a year. Absolutely unacceptable.
I have one quick one because she had so much
One
time.
last rebuttal.
So again, we passed our first equal pay laws in the 60s. Again, the answer is a vibrant economy, women having a great opportunity to work. They can file measures with the government if they're underpaid. In my practice, women are paid equally, if not more than men. In medicine, what I see on a daily basis is, again, highly paid women and nurses and women doctors and women phlebotomists. And again, equal treatment, equal pay. It happens in many parts of society. We need to bring it to all parts of society. I agree with that.
One last question, Governor Brown. You have said if Measure 97 passes, you will fix its flaws. What are they, and when and how will you fix them?
Well, I think the most important thing we can do is pass ballot measure 97. Oregon needs adequate and stable revenue for key basic services like early childhood education, CTE and STEAM, and removing barriers for children to attend university and community colleges. Every business person that I have talked to agrees that we need additional money on the table. Secondly, there are no other viable options. Governors and legislative leaders have wrestled with this for over 30 years. Governor Tom McCall went to his grave with a broken heart because he couldn't get tax reform in the state of Oregon. There is no other viable option. And third, it is time that corporations, out-of-state corporations, pay their fair share. Oregon has one of the lowest corporate tax burdens of any state in the entire country. Corporations are paying more in California, and they're paying more in Washington. Why are they allowed to take advantage of Oregonians? But I would ask you all this question. Do you think your school year is long enough? Do you think that your students and your grandchildren's schools class sizes are small enough? I don't. Do you think it's okay to kick off the 400,000 Oregonians, struggling families that we have just added to the Oregon Health Plan? I don't think so. And I'm not willing to cut seniors off of programs like Project Independence. I want them to remain in their own homes.
1 minute. Tax reform is not Measure 97. If Measure 97 passes, we have to make sure that we don't simply pour lots of money into an unreformed PERS system and the money is consumed in that, and we don't come back 5 years later with the same kinds of challenges. Again, we're preparing a budget that does not cut 400,000 people off of Medicaid. We're preparing a budget that doesn't shorten the school year. In fact, puts in $1 million more than last biennium. It's a government in a way that has no sense of frugality, no sense of reform, no sense of getting the best dollar for every dollar spent for the citizens. If Measure 97 passes, I do think we have to look at what we can do in terms of educational reform and increased support of education. Again, as I stated, we need to look at how we mitigate the $600 a year per family cost, increased costs of goods and services. And I do think we need to look at targeted businesses. I know Governor Brown was talking about software companies that are potentially having to pay on their gross receipts, which makes it so unfair when they sell their goods throughout the country. So it's going to take a lot of effort. I will look to certainly not spend $6 billion more in the budget of the government. I will look to be targeted, to match that targeting spending with reform. And again, we'll have to mitigate what is not a good bill or a tax reform bill, but we'll do the best we can if it passes.
Thank you both. We now are going to move to closing statements. Dr. Pierce, 2 minutes.
So Oregon is in a crisis, and on the stage with me is Governor Kate Brown, and she says that based on her 25 years of public service, that we should elect her as governor of Oregon. She's our best choice. I think we should look at her last job, Secretary of State, and see how she performed when she had full audit and oversight of government agencies and government programs. And some of the things that happened during Governor Brown's tenure included the failed Columbia River crossing, about $240 billion, no bridge built. Cover Oregon, $300 million. With a recent settlement with Oracle, it gets a little bit of money our way, but Oracle will probably make $500 million in helping us to upgrade our IT infrastructure. We have the business energy tax credit scam. About $1/3 billion of the $1 billion was not spent properly by a recent audit by the Secretary of State. Didn't have those when Governor Brown was Secretary of State. And finally, the neglect and the abuse of the foster system. Unacceptable, unreformed, sexual and psychological and all kinds of abuse for foster children. And even now we're being sued because the foster children are in hotels and in offices. I would say that Governor Brown's job performance makes her unqualified to be the next governor. So I have traveled around the state. I've spoken to many Oregonians, thousands of Oregonians. They demand higher paying jobs, a lower cost of living, a better infrastructure, a better transportation system, K through 12 education that's improved, affordable higher education. I have spent my whole life solving difficult to solve problems. Life has prepared me to run and be your governor. The ultimate solution is unity. All races, all religions, all gender identities coming together, working together, one race, a human race, to make a better today and a brighter future. Thank you for listening to me today.
I'm so proud of the work we have done for the last 18 months to keep Oregon moving forward. I look forward to working with you to make Oregon, our home, a place where everyone can thrive. And we can do that by investing in a seamless system of education from cradle to career that will improve educational outcomes for all of our children. We can do that by working together and invest in our roads and our bridges and our mass transit, which is a vehicle out of poverty for our families. And we can do it to make sure that people get to their works safely and that products can get to market effectively and efficiently. And we need to continue the work we're doing to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and tackle global climate change. We can do that by working together. Oregon may be just a very small part of the global problem, but we can be a huge part of the national solution. And under my strong leadership, we will continue to be. I hope I can earn your support in November. I believe that by working together, we can shape the times and the place in which we live. I believe that by working together, we can make Oregon this incredible place that we call home, a place where everyone can thrive. I look forward to working with you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Courtney.
We're out of broadcast time for today, but I think that was a really great start to the discussion. We look forward to hearing more from both the candidates as we head to the vote in November. Thank you for being here today. If you're interested in joining City Club, you can always join in the back of the room. One last membership pitch. Again, Courtney Nelson, President of City Club, thanks for being here today. And thanks to Walter Robinson and Daniel Kapua for putting together today's program. We're adjourned.